All right, hey, I'm here on Words First Marketing, where we have conversations with Storybrand guides and marketing folks about how to do better marketing. We dig into kind of the deeper issues, some of the complexities of how to implement your marketing, and specifically using Storybrand principles. And today I'm talking with David Lillard, and he works with a lot of manufacturers. And so we're going to talk about what does it look like for folks in kind of the industrial manufacturing space to implement Storybrand. What are the challenges? What do you need to know if you're in that space? So, David, welcome.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here with you.
Give us a little bit of a background. What do you do? Who do you work with? And what's your company?
Absolutely. So, David Lillard. I'm co-founder of Spartan Branding. We are a marketing agency that provides strategy, content, digital marketing for customers across the U.S., but a lot of customers are in the manufacturing or construction space. And so we spend a lot of time with manufacturers, industrial manufacturers, anyone working B2B, creating products that help move our industries.
Great. So, all right, here's the question. What is like the big problem for manufacturers when it comes to marketing? What do they struggle with most?
If I were to sum it up, I would say it like this. I think a lot of manufacturers lag behind other industries in the way that they go to market. Really specifically, they market like it's 1995. And so for them, practically, that means they have trade shows they're going to. They may have a website that hasn't been updated in 5 to 10 years. They have print ads that are going into trade publications, and then they have salespeople with flyers and spec sheets that are running around trying to generate leads the old-fashioned way. They're pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, trying to create cold leads. And so they're just not leveraging all of the digital marketing opportunities out there, or if they are, they're doing it kind of haphazardly without any intention or strategy behind it.
So yeah, maybe if they have a marketing department, it's more like sales enablement. It's there to support the sales team, but they don't really expect much from marketing. Something that I've seen with some clients kind of in that space is a lot of them have a really solid salesperson or a sales team, but they tend to be like an older generation of sales folks. And it's still working because they have the networks, they have the relationships, but they know as their salespeople retire, they have to replace that with something, and they don't have a similar person to step into that role. And so they're now thinking about marketing, but they're not really sure what they should be doing for marketing, and they especially don't know what's going to work for them when it comes to marketing. Is that a fair description?
Yeah,
of what
I
you're
agree
saying?
100%. We often work with that role that's called VP of sales and marketing, and I put marketing in air quotes because most of them are they're salespeople, right? And they've been successful at sales. They're probably good at sales management if they're keeping their job, but they have no experience when it comes to marketing. And marketing really is just sales support. That's what it is. This is what I need to sell, but they're not thinking about it from a lead generation standpoint. They're trusting their salespeople to generate leads instead of trusting marketing to generate leads that their sales team can close, which is it's a paradigm shift, right? And so, you've got this aging sales force that does it the old-fashioned way, which is not the way that most people do business moving forward. In these industries, we have younger and younger people with the purchasing power, the decision-making power, and they do things differently because they've been trained by the way that they buy. Right? When we buy a pair of shoes, we don't want to talk to a salesperson. We want to go online and buy. For some reason, it just lags behind, and especially in manufacturing, we think just because it's a more expensive product, it has to be done this way. It has to be done this way, and it's just not true. We see time and time again that using marketing to generate leads and just letting your salespeople be really great at closing is far more effective than just letting salespeople loose and running around.
Yeah. Well, things have obviously changed since 1995. I think I was reading that 70 or 80% of decision makers now are millennials, and those are not young people. I'm a millennial.
Same.
I have friends who have kids who are going into college this year, right? So it's people in their careers, but they are digital natives, and they're they want to do their research online. They want to do a lot of that a lot of that buying cycle happens before they talk to a salesperson, and so they don't want to get on the phone. We're tech savvy, but I would say phone call averse in a lot of cases, right? And so the buyers have changed, and so the way that you go to market and that you sell needs to change and adapt as well. But I think what's happening is a lot of these companies are left in this kind of in between two stools situation, right? Where they're still relying on an older kind of sales tactic, and they're trying to get into newer marketing tactics, but they're not fully committing, or they're not doing the marketing well. And so they're really hesitant to actually lean on this marketing system because they have no guarantee that it's going to work yet.
Right.
They haven't seen the signals. They don't really trust it. They're relying on an old system, not yet trusting a new one.
Yeah, I think that, and I agree with everything that you're saying. What they struggle with is knowing what they should be doing, right? I mean, they all have shiny object syndrome when it comes to marketing. And again, it comes back to I'm not trying to, talk down to them. It's just their experience is sales, right? And it's the way that they've always done things. And so there's all these new marketing tactics that are coming out. And you can't look at LinkedIn for more than 2 minutes without seeing a guru telling you exactly what you need to do. And so you see something that you think could work, or someone else in your industry says, hey, we're doing this, and you give it a shot. But if you don't know how to strategically plan to do it and then test it and validate it, then what you're going to do is you're going to take a swing at it. It's like playing whack-a-mole, right? Some marketing tactic pops up, you swing at it, and it either hits and takes off, which doesn't happen very often when you're just testing something the first time, one time, or they just move on to the next thing, and they say, well, that didn't work. I'm going to move on to the next thing. And there's no intentionality behind what should we be doing to get our marketing to generate high-quality leads that our sales team can just focus on closing and closing and closing.
Yeah. So when it comes to those tactics, and we're gonna get back to talking some Storybrand stuff here in a second, but I think there's levels, right? You've got your foundational stuff, which I think the Storybrand framework and those principles, getting your messaging right, having clarity and all that is super important. And then you move a little higher and you're thinking, what are those lead gen tactics? Like, what are the channels and things that you're promoting your message and getting it out there? When it comes to manufacturers, what are some of the main kind of avenues that you are seeing that work, or that folks are using right now?
Yeah, I think it's content marketing strategy, and that's not too different from most other industries. But most of the manufacturers I work with, they're very light on customer-focused content. They have a lot of technical data. They've got spec sheets on everything. They have CAD drawings. They're ready to talk to engineers. They're not ready to talk to customers, people that are using the product or just making a decision. And they're focusing so much on the features and not the benefits. And that kind of customer-centric benefit content, that's what they need to be focusing on. We take a look at websites, and they're so shallow. Even if they've been designed within the last 5 years and they're up to date and they're responsive and all those things, they're so shallow. They've got a ton of pages and tabs, but they're all 300 words or less, and they're not doing them any favors from Google's standpoint or customers, because for customers it becomes a choose your own adventure book, right? Like they're trying to figure out what the story is, what the narrative is, and they're just bouncing all over the place, and then they leave because they're frustrated.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about it as like when you're not clear and you're not painting a picture of what success looks like, the benefits, all of that, it's like giving someone a connect the dots book and all they see is dots, and you're asking them to like draw the picture in their own mind, but also none of the dots have numbers on them, so you're just trying to guess at like how these things fit together. And we know what that's going to do is it confuses people and they disengage. And I think that's especially true the higher level of like technical expertise that might be needed, or if you're dealing with anything that's a highly technical field, it gets more confusing. And I think a thing that a lot of people who are working in manufacturing companies, owners, the head of sales, a lot of them have an engineering or a technical background. And so their idea of their customers is that they're at a really high level of sophistication. And that might be true, but people, even who could understand that level, that's not the level that they buy at. When they're in their research phase, they're not going to sift through, like you said, CAD drawings and technical specs to figure out if this works. They want those quick hit, like, understanding, does this solve the problem that I have? If so, maybe it's going to make sense to move into those conversations to figure out the details, with a salesperson or with some engineer on their team.
Yeah. I think there's so many stakeholders when it comes to manufacturing clients. The sales process is very different. If you and I want to go buy shoes, we're deciding if we're going to buy a pair of shoes. Maybe we have a partner that we have to check with first to make sure we can clear the money. But otherwise, it's a pretty simple process, right? When you're talking about selling a product, that's $50,000 and has to be integrated into another system, all of a sudden there's a bunch of different people that have to get involved. Even at levels of technical expertise, they're experts in different things. So they're not an expert in how a grease trap needs to operate for your commercial kitchen. They don't know that. They know about plumbing. They know that. They know all about plumbing and all of the different code that they need to follow. But they don't know grease traps, and they certainly don't know the particular grease trap that you manufacture. And so there's differing levels of technical expertise. And so if you just hit at the level that you're assuming, just like you're saying, you're assuming that they understand everything, and half of it could go right over their head, and you're missing the opportunity, as opposed to taking a step back, thinking of it from what do they want, what problem do they have, and what solution are we providing, and now we're getting into Storybrand. If you start there, then it's different. You're not listing out features, you're talking about benefits or solutions to problems, and that's a big shift for a lot of companies.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's take it there. Let's go kind of back to Storybrand. You and I have both been Storybrand guides for a while, worked with a lot of clients. I've worked with a couple folks in the manufacturing space. You've worked with a lot of them. When you approach a brand script or you're working on messaging with a manufacturing client, what do you find are kind of the sticking points or maybe the holes that if you're auditing the marketing and the messaging of a manufacturer in general, they really need to flesh out this kind of piece of the puzzle using Storybrand.
Yeah, I think it's one of two, and I already touched on one, which is if your founder and the CEO is an engineer, they can get really obsessed with features. They can get really obsessed with what your particular widget can do.
They get excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually. They get really excited. Back of napkin, like a mad person, excited. And so they get so excited about what they could do with it, they don't stop to ask if it's actually what customers want or if it's solving an actual problem that they have. And so that's one is they start at the wrong end. Right? They create this product without asking themselves, do people actually need this? Is this solving a problem, or are we just increasing the cost of the product for no reason whatsoever? And so I think that's one side of it. The other side would be trying to narrow down what specific problem they solve for their customers. And we were talking about salespeople earlier, and salespeople are really great at sitting in front of a customer, asking the right questions, finding the holes, finding the problems, and then positioning their products against that to solve that problem. Our marketing can't do that on the fly, right? We're moving into dynamically generated content on websites, but most people's websites are static. And you've got those 3 to 5 seconds to grab someone's attention, make sure they understand what they're seeing is what they need to see, or they're going to bounce. And so when it comes to Storybrand, it's helping them narrow it down to what is the problem. And yes, you solve a lot of problems. You solve problems for different industries, perhaps, in different ways. But what's the one that's going to catch the most of them? What's the one that's going to resonate with 85% of your customer base? And if you can figure out that, it makes everything a lot easier. And of course, you can umbrella all of your brand scripts to hit your different products and services and industries. But figuring out what that high-level umbrella language is probably one of the toughest things that they have.
It's not just manufacturers that do this, but one of the easiest ways to go wrong with a website is not making choices. And so sometimes you land on a website and it's got that scrolling or changing headline where like every 3 seconds it rotates into a new headline. And so I come from like the web design world. What that is doing is someone lands on your website and you're teaching them to not pay attention to whatever copy they see, because it's going to change and they're going to forget it. And so even like anytime you're trying to say too many things, you're actually undercutting all of them. And I do think that actually is a huge challenge for a lot of people who, if you ask like, what problem do you solve? Well, every client has a different problem, so we solve all of them. Okay, what does each client want? Well, everybody wants something different. Narrowing it down and making a choice. Now, and I've worked with clients where we've narrowed down and we've made a choice, and then we've tested it and we've decided actually that's not quite right. We're gonna shift it a little bit. Because you said a website is static, but it's not permanent, right? You can work on your messaging, you can make a choice, and making a choice is a better decision than trying to like do too many things at once. You can change it. That's the reality, but you do have to have that, like, what's that one problem that we're gonna solve? And it's both kind of getting broader sometimes to say like, what's the big picture problem, and also narrowing it down to say, but we're also choosing one thing that we think is going to resonate. You don't want it to fall flat or be. You mentioned shallow earlier. I think that idea sometimes we hit on that. So so choosing that problem. You mentioned the sales guys are really great at kind of adapting and reacting in real time, but you got to choose that problem. A thing I've found also is like the simplification piece of it. This is going back to a little bit of what we were talking earlier. The spec sheets, the CAD drawings, the like super technical stuff. There might be a place for that on, say, a website, but it's not usually the front page. It's not top level. Let's just think like websites. What are some of the common problems that you see with manufacturing websites when you first start working with someone?
No, I think you're touching on something there, because so many manufacturers do have a lot of technical information, right? And so they've got spec sheets, they've got CAD drawings and technical drawings. They may even have how-tos and how to install this here and how to put this product with this product. They got so much technical information. What I hear a lot of is, well, we've got to make sure that that's all accessible immediately, right? It's all accessible immediately. And so what you see in the navigation bar from that is 50 different links. Or 10 different drop downs with 40 links on each one. A ridiculous amount of information that's overwhelming to people. It makes it really difficult for them to find what they need. And the truth is, a customer or someone who is that deep in there to say, I want to use this product and now I just need the technical data. Okay. They're going to go the extra mile if they can't find it immediately and probably reach out to somebody. They're probably going to jump in the live chat. They're probably going to email someone. Maybe they'll call. They're going to reach out and try and figure it out. Who's not going to figure it out are the people who are coming to you fresh, and they haven't decided what they're going to buy. They don't need to see your spec sheet yet. They don't need to see it. What they need to see is themselves, their problem, and the way that your product or service is positioned to solve that. And so, to your point, I think it's the complexity, paradox of choice issue, where we're giving them so many options that they're paralyzed and they want to bounce, as opposed to telling them, we understand what you're going through, this is the problem, and this is the solution right here, and this is what you need to focus on. So making it more prospect friendly, I think, making the website more prospect friendly and not post-sale technical engineer, leaning towards those people.
Yeah. What does a plan usually look like for your clients? I'm sure it's different somewhat for different clients, but what does that look like with some of the clients you've worked with?
I'm a big fan of strategy first. And I think there's a lot of things that we could do for customers. I like telling people what they should do. And that's not with 100% certainty, but it's certainly with a degree of expertise and understanding of what they do, telling them these are the things you should focus on. And so when I sit down with a manufacturer and we're talking about their marketing, I usually will, of course, ask some questions. But ultimately what I'm getting to is they don't know what's working and what's not. They're doing things because they've always done them. They take their marketing plan, which isn't really a plan, it's a budget. They're taking their marketing budget, and marketing budget is not a plan. And they're just copying and pasting every single year and doing the exact things over and over again without any understanding of, is it generating leads? Is it helping you nurture prospects into clients? Is it shortening your sales cycle? And so, the first thing I want to do is I want to sit down and look at what you're doing to figure out, where are the missed opportunities? What are you not doing that you should be doing? What are you doing that you're absolutely wasting money on? I worked with one manufacturer, and they were doing radio ads, and their clients were a very specific audience. They're utility and gas plants. And I'm sitting there thinking,
there's just not enough of them listening to the radio.
You're putting up a radio ad that's hitting, 10, 20, 30,000 people, and you're trying to catch one person there. And it's just a waste of money. And so I want to look at what's working and what opportunities are you missing out on, and then we're going to put together a plan. And usually, I like to think from my days running marketing for a manufacturer, I like to think in a year, in a calendar format. And so I'm gonna look at, okay, this is what we're going to do in month one. Month one, we're going to focus on this. We're going to focus on foundational issues, website, marketing technology. What do we need to clean up with what you have already? And then shift into how can we start to add some of these other tactics in and test them, see what's working, and then double down on those things. Strategy first, and then moving into execution.
One thing that I'm seeing a lot these days is there are a lot of options. There's 1,000 ways you can spend your marketing budget, and every agency has a hammer, and they're trying to make sure that you recognize your problem is the nail, right? And so there are some, I think this is especially true for manufacturers, there are some clients where like a keyword SEO strategy makes a ton of sense. People are looking for a specific product. You might have a narrow audience, but they know what kind of problem they're solving, and maybe there's not a ton of competitors in the space. If you can rank higher organically for some of these keywords, it's going to make a lot of sense. There's other products where people just don't know that they have the problem that your product solves. And so no one's searching for an answer to that yet. And so you could do all the keywords that you wanted, but if people don't already understand and have like some demand related to this product, they may not find their way there. So I think having a good marketing strategist on your team who's not married to a singular strategy, someone you can work with who can help say like this is going to work for you and this is not going to work for you, and they understand the difference, rather than someone who's just 100% focused on like, well, I have this one service that I offer and I'm gonna sell it to you, is really important. I know you spend a lot of time kind of as that strategist role when you're working with your clients. Are you working with CEOs, like the salespeople? What do those conversations look like, and how are you helping to guide them in those circumstances?
Yeah, I love what you were just talking about, because it's a big part of what we actually do. So usually I'm sitting down with the executive team, oftentimes sales and marketing, and sometimes we get into operations a little bit. It kind of depends on how their teams are built. But what you were describing there is a key part of what we do. So we think about an ideal customer journey. And when we think about it, we think about it as levels of awareness. And what you were describing, I would break down as problem awareness, solution awareness, and then product or service awareness. And people are dropping in at different points. And so when you were talking about problem awareness, some people actually don't understand the problem they have. They understand the symptoms that they're experiencing, but they don't know what the root cause of that is. And so it really depends on where their customers are. So if their customers don't even understand that what they're doing is a problem, then we've got to educate them on that. And so your content has to start much higher up the funnel. We got to focus farther up there. If they're not solution aware, so they understand they have a problem, but they don't understand these solutions, well, guess what? I mean, even then, you're probably not going to want to use a heavy keyword, key phrase search strategy because they don't know what to search for. You can focus on problem phrases and maybe do that. But if you're focusing on what you do specifically, it may fall flat because people just aren't searching for it. If you're lucky enough that your customers are solution aware, then it makes it a lot easier, I think, because that's where a lot of manufacturers sit. Is they know how, especially with all of the different testing that they have to do and regulations they go through. There are keywords and jargon everywhere, and they'd love to stick that in there, but they've got to make sure that their clients actually understand that first.
Yeah. What typically, how big, what kind of size sale for your clients? Are we talking, these are $500 sales, $50,000 sales? What's that look like?
Yeah,
usually?
most of our clients are selling products that are several $1,000s, and oftentimes they are packaged together into much larger sales. So we're talking deals that are $50,000 to $200,000. Sometimes far more than that, but a lot of the manufacturers are sitting in that space, and so it's a high ticket item. It's not buying something small. The decision making process is not going to be quick, and so yeah.
And most manufacturers, we're not talking like B2C. They're not manufacturing shoes and then trying to sell them to consumers directly. I'm sure there's some that have, some of the clients I've worked with have a piece of that, but their big sales are to like distributors or other OEM manufacturers building, they build component parts, they're putting them onto bigger things like that. Is that what you're seeing most of the time? Yeah,
well, that's one of the things that I find so fascinating about marketing, or about manufacturing especially, is that it's like an onion, and you start peeling it back and there's all these different layers. I mean, even a company that does light assembly, they have other companies that are manufacturing the sub-assemblies. They have companies that are doing your injection molded plastic or your rotationally molded plastic, doing your circuitry, and all these pieces are coming together from other companies that are also manufacturers, and it's all going into this one product. And then you have this product that's probably going into a business. Let's say, so I work for a grease trap manufacturer. I know it's one of the most obscure possible companies or industries to work in. But even when we're doing that, there's so many different people involved. There's not one person who's deciding. You have gatekeepers who decide what can and can't be used in certain locations. You've got architects and engineers that are figuring out how does this fit in with the other systems within the building. You've got the actual owner-operators who's going to be using it day in, day out. And then you probably have some kind of general contractor or plumbing contractor that is actually going to install it. And so you've got all of these different people that are involved. And that's what I find so fascinating about it, is it's not as simple, I'm going to put this up on our website, I'm going to turn on Instagram advertising and just let these small little sales come in. It's a complicated process that needs an intentional strategy to communicate to all of those different people and understand all of their problems and how your product is uniquely positioned to solve it.
Yeah. Whenever you have multiple stakeholders, or where like the person who may be experiencing the pain is different than the person making the decision, I think the thing that's great about the Storybrand framework and really approaching your marketing from like a words first standpoint is when you have a clear message, it makes it so much easier to travel up that chain or through those different stakeholders. Because if the person who hears about the product, maybe they're not a very technical person, but they know it solves a problem, they can go to the technical person, or they can talk to someone else, their peer group, they're going to share these solutions. As a business, though, you have to go through the work of clarifying that, because people will use the words that you give them to talk about your product, and they'll remember your company or your product based on the problem that you solve, not the features that are on your widget or whatever it is. And so we have to define that, articulate it, and then post it. Like, it's got to be out there where people can understand, and that makes it's it's kind of like oil in the machine. Like, it makes all these other things just move more smoothly when you can get your words right. And I mean, you and I, we've both been doing Storybrand for a long time. I don't know of a better, like, quicker, better, faster way to get to messaging. It's not to say that Storybrand is the only way to create copy for your business, but to me, it's like, this is a framework that we can sit down, agree on, and get to a solution like pretty quickly as a company. And it's that kind of North Star that says, we're not going to go with whoever's like the loudest person in the room. We have a strategy that we can use that's going to get us to a destination, which is, clear messaging.
Right. Yeah. I didn't come up with this, but I use the phrase, it's like putting handles on your messaging. Like, you got to be able to hand it to someone else, and who hears the message may not be the person who makes the decision, like what you're talking about, but they may know the person that makes the decision. And if you hand them really clunky, confusing messaging, it makes it hard for them to carry that to the next person, right? And so when you can use something like the Storybrand framework to create clear messaging, uncomplicated messaging, it's much easier for someone to take that, pick it up, and carry it to the person who does need to hear it. Otherwise, I mean, you're going to be lucky if they pass on the right message to the next person, and that's not what you want. You don't want to rely on luck or on someone's quick comprehension abilities to be able to explain it to someone else. You want to give them the messaging that they can take to anybody.
Okay, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. What, as you think about your clients, is there a message, like a headline or a one-liner that you feel like you're kind of proud of as your work as a strategist? As far as maybe we talk about the grease trap client. Like, what's the problem that they solve?
That's an excellent question. This was a number of years ago, but I think that what they do better than anyone else is, look, restaurant owners didn't get into the business to deal with grease and waste. That's not it. That's not why they started their business. They did it because they hopefully love cooking food and love delighting customers.
It's super weird. It's a super weird restaurant owner who's like
who's in love with the waste, the byproducts of what they do, and so that's not why they got in the business of it. And so, why should their day be filled up with dealing with something that smells bad and is a pain to take care of? They shouldn't. It should take care of it for them. And that's something that I'm really proud of, and I think that when you can get down to that point, especially if you can say that this is the superior alternative to everything else that you're trying to do, that's a really sweet spot to be in. But to tap into the emotional feeling of, or maybe it's even the philosophical problem that, I didn't get in business to deal with grease. I got in business to make food and delight customers. So.
Yeah, that's way beyond features into those kind of like ideas. Okay, 2 questions. How would people find and connect with you? That's going to be question 1. And then question 2 is who are the right folks to be working? How would a company or a person know if they should be reaching out to you and your team?
Yeah, so we love working with great companies who make amazing products and have fantastic teams, but just aren't sure what they should be doing from a marketing standpoint to scale their business. And so oftentimes we're working with companies that have been successful in the past but have plateaued because their sales-driven organization just can't generate enough new leads for them to scale. And so we love coming in and just helping them use marketing to deliver those marketing qualified leads, so their sales team isn't out there just pounding the pavement. They can literally focus on, this person is interested in our products, let me talk to them. And so that's who we love working with. It's got to be a company that of course wants to grow. There's nothing worse than talking with someone who really doesn't want to grow. So they've got to want to scale their business, and they need to understand that marketing is an investment. It's not a spend, it's an investment. And it does take an investment to generate return. And so we love working with people who understand that and trust other people to help them find the right way. If someone's interested in working with us, they can always go to our website, spartanbrandingco.com. If they're interested in starting a project or just talking about what problems they're experiencing, we love having those conversations and finding a way to help them find the right way.
Yeah, that's great, David. This has been a good conversation. I've worked with a few manufacturers. They're not my sweet spot. We do some web design and things like that. But I would definitely say, if you're in that space and you need good advice, you need to talk to someone who understands your business, you should get in touch with David. SpartanBrandingCo.com. Are you on LinkedIn or Twitter or any of those places?
Yeah, well, I'm active on LinkedIn, not so much on Twitter. Twitter, I'm mostly bemoaning my poor Carolina Panthers that are terrible right now. But you probably want to avoid that and come on over to LinkedIn.
Yeah. So unless you want to commiserate with David about the Panthers, you should find him on LinkedIn. My name is Matt Banker. My company is Banker Creative, bankercreative.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well, so connect with me there. And this has been Words First Marketing. David, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.